and a wonderful. And I hope this day, evening, Chayel, will be a good, a meaningful one for you and everybody. Can you see my PowerPoint? I'm having a bit of trouble with my screen, but I can certainly see my PowerPoint, so I hope you can too.
You might need to reshare it because we shared the Nagunim, so it took it away from you. But if you reshare it, it'll probably be.
Okay, so let me see.
Thank you.
Gosh. Here we are again. From the beginning. Is it there?
Yeah.
Yes. You should have. So here's my title: Why I Would Advise Framing Science in Jewish Wisdom. And a lot of thought and discussion went into this title. Thank you very much, Musi, for getting it so right.
I think credits go to Zadie for that one, but.
Now, I didn't grow up with Hasidus, and my first encounters with Hasidus were as a young adult university lecturer. And the very first Hasidus I experienced were some shiurim given by Rabbi Nachman Sudak, who was the head shliach in London. And he gave shiurim on the Rebbe's Rashi Sichos, and they were just what I needed, because I was having terrible problems with Rashis. Either I couldn't understand what they were saying, or they were saying something so obvious I couldn't understand why he was saying them. And these sichos helped me to understand. They unpacked what Rashi was thinking and what Rashi was saying, and it was terribly exciting. And then around that time, somebody said you should really be learning chittas and every day. And so I started to study Tanya, and I was so excited. I said, this is the best psychology book ever. It's different from all the others, but it's definitely better. And I certainly still, many years later, find that it helps to keep me going, as indeed do other shiurim in Hasidus. But Tanya is, I suppose, our daily bread and butter, water, cups of tea, all the basic things that we need every day to keep us going. So Tanya is definitely that. Now, can I give you very quickly some examples of theories in scientific psychology? And I'm just going to mention three, which are of particular current interest to me, because I'm currently working on trauma therapy. And so the first is, I believe, the most famous face in psychology. I used to lecture to quite large undergraduate audiences, and I would typically put up this face and say, does anybody here not know who this is? And typically maybe one or two Chinese students would raise their hands, but everybody else, when I asked people to raise their hands if they knew who it was, there was immediate, almost the entire room would be a forest of waving hands. Everybody knows this face, and you don't get that response for other apparently equally respected psychologists, such as Jung, to take another psychotherapy theorist, or Skinner or Watson, or other people from other schools in psychology. So here's one person, and his principal theory, which over the years I've come to see is more and more correct. Neuroses, human psychological illness and suffering, often have their origin in traumata Another theory, psychological theory, which I think is terribly important, and again, the more work I do on traumata, the more I understand that attachment theory is indeed very important. It looks at how our early relationships, particularly, are important in helping us to feel secure or sometimes anxious. And another very dominant theory in psychology is cognitive behavior theory, which looks at how our thoughts and feelings and actions all influence and reinforce each other. Now, I've picked on those theories because they're ones that I use quite a lot in my therapeutic work nowadays. And I could have taken, there are dozens of theories I could have taken, but I'm really trying to contrast these theories, and I'm not saying these theories are no good or not true, they're perfectly true, just that they don't go far enough, nearly far enough. And they do help us to understand the way things are, and they can be very important in therapy, they can be important in practical psychological work, applied psychology, and so on, but they're insufficient. And so what I wanted to say here was simply what I felt Hasidus is doing, which other theories and ideas and concepts and frameworks don't do. First of all, very important to me, I don't know whether it's important to you, but I find it very exciting and I don't want to use the word important again, but I'll have to, important to keep in mind the idea which underlies Hasidus, which is the idea that every microsecond, the world and everything in it is being created anew. So it's not that we were here yesterday and it's going to be tomorrow and it's all boring and so on. Every microsecond is new. And the whole physical world is in a state of continuous creation. And I find that a very important idea to bear in mind. And then Hasidus is reminding us continually of why we're here. And this existential question is something which very seldom addressed and certainly not satisfactorily answered in other scientific theories. We also get in Hasidus, as you know, the explanations of the profound spiritual and indeed material and psychological effects of mitzvahs and of Torah study, and particularly the emphasis on kindness and tzedakah and doing good deeds. So those are all things that are attended to in Hasidus, which generally don't get attended to in other explanations, scientific stories about human nature or the nature of the world. And the other things that I found particularly striking in Hasidus were, first of all, the fact that great attention is given to our moral nature, the importance of not doing bad things and doing good things. Again, this is something that is seldom attended to in scientific psychology. Our spiritual nature often either ignored or denied in many theories. And just to repeat myself, because it's worth repeating, is that what Hasidus is doing is reminding us why we're here, what we ought to be doing, what we need to be doing. Okay, so I'm not going to say any more because I believe and hope that although my dear husband is not going to expand directly on any of these things I've said, I hope I've made my basic points, which are simply that I think Hasidus is amazing, and it's a wonderful day and a wonderful occasion on which to say this. Thank you. Bye. Lovely to
Thank
see
you so much, Bobby, for taking the time to talk to us. Now going to introduce my Zaidi. So my Zaidi is also a lecturer in the university. He has a doctorate in Hasidic philosophy. He also teaches the equivalent of RNS in England to the girls' high school in the local Lubavitch Girls' High School. So without further, he's also one of the biggest experts on Tanya that I know. I have the great fortune to learn with my Zaidi every day, the daily Tanya. So very, very amazing. He's definitely knows tons of Chassidus. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon my Zaidi. Thank you.
Can I share the screen, please, Musi?
Yeah, we'll get that up for you.
Yes. Thank you. Right. Okay, let's see if I've got the right document. Okay, I hope you can see that. So here we have the idea that Torah frames science, especially from the Hasidic perspective. Let's try to understand what that means. The Rebbe is very concerned to teach that Torah and what you might call good science do not conflict. So the basic way of understanding that, as it says over here, the world was created with Asara Ma'amoros, the 10 utterances of creation. Asara Ma'amoros Nivra Olam, with 10 utterances the world was created, says in Pirkei Avos. The Torah was given with the Aseres Hadibros, with the 10 commandments. Both come from Hashem, and exploring the world through science will help us achieve our purpose to make the world into a dwelling for Hashem. Now that's a very interesting concept. We know from Hasidus, particularly, that the goal of life is to make the world into a dira lo yisborach b'tachtonim, a dwelling for Hashem. And the idea of studying and exploring different aspects of the world and the way that humanity has succeeded in flying to the moon and sending satellites around the world and developing all kinds of other interesting technologies and all kinds of theoretical ideas, such as the theory of relativity, quantum mechanics. All these are ways in which we discover the panemius, the inwardness of the world. And there's a famous sikha in Parshas Noach, I think it's in Chelek Tetzvov, volume 15 of the Likutei Sichas, where the Rebbe explains the way in which science and Torah are absolutely unified together if we are looking at science in the right way. Now, as my dear wife said just a few minutes ago, the equivalent of science tells us what and Torah tells us why. However, there are also sometimes conflicts because what science textbooks say and what the Torah says. And so according to the Rebbe, that's because people are often not careful enough in their analysis of what science is really saying. So you see, you've got research scientists who are at the forefront of science, and then what they write about gets put into textbooks, which are simplifications, and very often those textbooks are expressed in ways which apparently contradict Torah. And so for that, we have to understand what is a scientific theory, and this is something the Rebbe discusses. Now, the concept of extrapolation. Now, I can't really see many of you, but I just wonder how many of those that I can see. Do you know what extrapolation means? Can anyone, Any of these young ladies know what it's Chaya Levi? Do you know what extrapolation is? No, okay. All right, I'm doing a sample over here.
Is extrapolation outside of the data set, like something that you're finding out outside of the data set?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely right. Now, you've defined it perfectly well. That's great. Now, because some people don't know, I'm going to try to explain briefly what this is, because it's a very important idea and it's discussed in a letter by the Rebbe. At the beginning, I'm going to stop sharing screen and I'm going to show you a kind of virtual experiment that we're going to do. So I have here, I brought this from the Lubavitch Girls School. So I have here a nice thermometer, and I have here a Bunsen burner, right? And in virtual terms, I'm going to light the Bunsen burner, okay? So let's just see that. So this is all virtually, right? Okay, you can't actually see the flame. It's a virtual flame. Okay, you've got to be able to use your imagination. Now I'm going to put this beaker of water on the Bunsen burner, right? You can see that. And we put it there. And now, as it's heating up, I'm putting in the thermometer and I'm going to measure the temperature of this water. Right now, so to save time, I've actually got a series of the results. So what I'm going to be doing is every couple of minutes, taking the temperature of the water. So now we're going to share that screen again, and we're going to look at the results. So here we have the known evidence. But right at the beginning, it's quite a hot day, according to this graph. It was 30 degrees. I must tell you that on the thermometer, it's actually only 20 degrees. But let's say it's a very hot day here in London. It's the end, it's August, the summer, the brilliant hot summer. But you and I will both have to imagine that. And so here we have the known data, as we were just told by one of you. And so based on this data, right, so we've got here time and temperature, and here's a graph which shows that. Now, on the basis of this, a straight line graph can be drawn, right? So there we have a straight line graph connecting all the dots. Now, one aspect of extrapolation is between known points, so we could say that if at 9 minutes, if at 8 minutes it was here, and at 10 minutes it was there, so at 9 minutes it was over there. Yes, and it's quite unlikely that there should have been some terrible dip in the middle of that picture. But then we have extrapolation beyond the data. That's extrapolation within the data. But if we take extrapolation beyond, we extend the graph beyond what we see in nature or the laboratory. And here we are, we're extending it. Now, here we are extending it that way. We're extending it backwards. Extrapolation beyond what we really know, beyond the known data, is shown in red. Is this rational and reasonable? Does it look rational and reasonable? What do you think? Toby Jaffe, what do you think? Is it rational and reasonable? Yeah? Musia Cooper, you think it's rational?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Is it true? Can anyone tell me, is it true? Anyone have a comment about that? Is it actually true? No, right. Can you tell me why not?
Because it didn't actually happen.
Right. What does happen?
Doesn't it stop at 100?
Yes. And what happens then?
It boils and becomes gas.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's look at the next picture. We don't need to read the stuff. It goes up to 100 and then it keeps at 100 while it all boils away and becomes steam. And then it suddenly overheats because all the water's boiled away. And this poor beaker, this glass beaker, is going to crack with the with the Bunsen burner, burning it without any water inside it. Okay, so in other words, the extrapolation in this case is not true. There's another point also. If you look at the extrapolation, what happened before? According to this picture, 20 minutes ago, it was below 0 degrees centigrade. It was a block of ice. But that wasn't the case, right? The water's been standing in my room a long time, and it wasn't a block of ice. It was at room temperature, like it has over here, right? This sort of hot room temperature of 30 degrees. Now, then we have other kinds of objections. Sometimes the theory can appear to explain what we see in nature or in a laboratory, except that there's a problem, there's an objection, there's an anomaly. For example, the complex structure of the eye is an objection to the theory of evolution. The eye is like an amazing camera. And here it gives a lot of details about it, the lens, the iris, and so on, the retina, the rods and cones, all these things, and the way it works, it's absolutely fascinating. Now, the whole point of the theory of evolution, and in fact, the whole trend of science for the last 200 years, is that it's all by chance. People thinking it's by chance. However, the eye does not look as if it is developed by chance, little steps one after the other. Right here we have a bit of a diagram about the eye. It just says it shows a certain part of it. It doesn't show all the complexity, doesn't show the rods and cones. Now, Darwin wrote in his book on the origin of species in 1859 that the eye was a great puzzle for the theory of evolution. Richard Dawkins, who is a professor in Oxford, who tries to push Darwinism and atheism, unfortunately, writing 150 years later, he said exactly the same. And so the point is, you have their theory, which is very widespread, which is taught in every school in the country. And the government here in Britain, they forbid science teachers to say that it is a theory. It has to be taught as if it was fact. I teach, I can't remember what Musi called it exactly. We call it RS, Religious Studies. That's, you've got some similar name in the Lubavitch High School. And there I'm allowed to criticize Darwin according to the British law. But my colleague, my Hasidic science teacher friend, he is not allowed officially to criticize Darwin by saying it's a theory, and there are lots of objections to it. That's how crazy it has gone in Britain and elsewhere. There's a story about a Chinese scientist who was a paleontologist. That means a person studying fossils. And he came to a conference in America and he gave a talk about fossils. And in this talk, he criticized Darwin. And after the talk, his American colleagues were very shocked. They said, how can you possibly criticize Darwin? I thought you come from a very strict country in China. Everything is very much governed, run by the government very closely. He said, you're quite right. You know, in China, we are allowed to criticize Darwin, but we're not allowed to criticize the government. You in America, you can criticize the government, but you're not allowed to criticize Darwin. So that's a true story. So for a video talk about evolution, which I gave some years ago, you could look on Chabad.org, just search for the Lubavitcher Rebbe on evolution, and you'll get a talk on more details about evolution. Now, as my wife said, the purpose of existence, the way that modern science is often presented is that everything is a product of chance. But Torah tells us it's not by chance. It's created with a purpose to create a dwelling for Hashem in this physical world. And it's particularly Hasidus, Tanya, and Bosiligani, which emphasize that idea. Now, this divine purpose is the goal. And all life and every moral system should be directed towards that goal. And this frames how we understand science. Everything which is discovered and all new technological advance has meaning within the framework of the divine purpose for existence, to create a dwelling for the divine in this physical world. And in ultimate terms, that will be with the coming of Mashiach and the building of the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim. In immediate terms, it's achieved within the Jewish home, especially on Shabbos, where husband and wife, sons and daughters create a dwelling for the divine. You light your candle for Shabbos, your mother lights hers. There is the indwelling of the Shekhinah at that moment. And there's a famous passage from the Zohar, which the Rebbe explains, that the husband is like the letter Yud, and the wife is like the letter Hey, and they have children. There's the Vav of the sons and the daughters who are the Hey, Yud Ke Vav Ke. Together they form the divine name, and there they are in the Jewish home making a Mikdash Ma'at, a dwelling for Hashem. And this is the framework for science and life. When Mashiach comes, we will see the unity of science, the study of nature, with Torah, the teaching from Hashem about how to live. The world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. Like the waters cover the sea. And then we will be fulfilling the purpose of existence truly. And then the teachings of Chassidus from the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, whose birthday is tonight, Chai Elul, both of those teachings will be realized and we will experience them together. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Rabbi Professor Loewenthal and to Professor Loewenthal. We really appreciate what your thoughts and all your effort that you went into making those presentations for us. It was so interesting to see how you confuse science with Chassidus, even in today where we think that, you know, science is really like the true thing, but at the end of the day, it's really Chassidus behind it, which is really the truth. And I can definitely vouch for Professor Loewenthal's science video on Chabad.org. I did watch it because I had to do a presentation in seminary. So thank you very much, and definitely go watch it. It's extremely interesting. Thank you very, very much for coming all the way from England. And now we will have Abigail Wanda all the way from Melbourne, Australia. So she's going to go and speak about how learning Chassidus is very different to learn Chassidus and to live Chassidus. And as somebody growing up in Melbourne, the same way you guys all grew up, how you live Chassidus. So over to Abigail.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to Professor Rabbi Loewenthal, Dr. whatever, the Bobby and the Zaidi, for both your talks. They were so enlightening, and Professor Loewenthal, psychologist. I have a lot to echo or mirror in what you've said tonight. So Chai Elul is probably one of my favorite Hasidic Yomim Tovim, because I feel like it's really the birth of everything. And you know how apt that it really is on Chai, on the 18th day, on the day of life, because Chai Elul is the birth of Chassidus, and Chassidus really is our life. We know that, you know, the mashal that Chassidus came as a way to awaken Bnei Yisrael from the faint, that, you know, as a people we had suffered so much for so long, and acutely the Chmelnytsky massacres. I mean, if you haven't learned about it in Jewish history yet, you're going to learn about it. I think it's in year 9 Jewish history, where we learn about the attacks on the Jewish people in the 16th century, 17th century, that especially in Eastern Europe, hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, really huge suffering that the Yidden suffered through. And then the disappointment of, you know, waiting and thinking that Mashiach would come, that such a churban and such bad suffering would lead to Mashiach coming, and that all hope was really lost. The Jewish people were so dejected, so you know, even though they kept on with Torah mitzvahs, their frame of mind, they were hit when they were down again and again and again. And comes the Baal Shem Tov and really gives the Jewish people so much chayes. So it really is amazing that you know, those two people who are really responsible for us today, you know, being here in Australia, on this side of the world, in 2021, you know, celebrating this day and being inspired. I mean, I look and I see 92 people in this Zoom, which is just unbelievable, that 92 young people are saying, my Yiddishkeit matters to me, you know, my relationship with Hashem matters to me, my Hasidic identity matters to me, I want to connect, is just unbelievable, because there are so many things you could be doing right now, and this is what you want to be doing. So I find it incredibly inspiring. And I want to just, I don't know if you've ever had a job where you were doing something that you felt was really not so important. So maybe you were once working in sort of like a kitchen, or maybe you were working in an assembly line, or maybe, have you ever been like in a hospital setting where you see like the wardens who like push the beds around, if they might push the bed from the room to the x-ray room, or from the x-ray room to the thing, or the catering staff in a hospital? Or if you've ever, you know, seen a factory working, and you've got these factory workers and they're standing by the line, or the warden who's moving the bed from one place to another, or the person who's peeling the carrots in the hospital kitchen or the hotel kitchen. So think of it like a big system, and there's one person who's like plugging away. Now that person's plugging away, and you know, for the first day, for the second day, it can be like, you know, I've got a job, you know, I've peeled 600 carrots today, I've pushed this amount of beds today, I've cleaned this amount of rooms today. But after a while, that person, even though there may be a sense of accomplishment, even though they might be doing what they're doing well, sometimes in business, there's a concept that when you bring in all your workers from all the different facets of your team, from all your different levels of the hierarchy, it doesn't matter where they are, and you explain to them,
thank you so much,
why are you doing this? Do you know that when you peel those carrots, they get made into food that's for the baby food in the Royal Children's Hospital for the babies to be able to eat? Do you know that when you carry that person through the hallways, the way that you interact with them, our holistic well-being in our hospital, the way that we treat people in our hotel, your little bit is part of the vibe. And in fact, one of the most sort of well-known, I don't know if he's a psychologist, but motivational speakers around the world. Am I allowed to share my screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Tell me when I can, and I'll share it. Oh yeah, maybe now I can. Yeah, okay. So there's a very famous speaker around the world. His name is Simon Sinek, but he talks a lot about the golden circle of why. And sorry, Professor Loewenthal, I'm going to where you're going, but I guess this is a Fabrangen, so I'm sort of like feeding off what you've done. But he talks a lot about the why. And so you've got this worker who might know what they have to do. They have to peel the carrots, they have to push the patient, they have to clean the bed, they have to change the room, whatever it is, work on the, you know, make sure that the things go in the packets, whatever it is. You might even teach them how to do it well. But the minute you imbue everyone in your workplace with the why, all of a sudden, everything they're doing has all this meaning. And I can tell you that I work with this circle every single day in my life. I work with it, I work in education, and everything that we do in education, of course, is the what. Which classes will we have? What time will it run? What room will it do? Who will be the teacher? What will be? But it all comes back to your inner why. And so what I put forward today, which is an echo, I think, of what Dr. Loewenthal has put forward, is that Hasidus gives us a chayas because it gives us that why. And, you know, Ashreinu Matav Chalkeinu, how lucky we are that we are actually in this place. And I say how lucky we are, how fortunate we are, because for many of us in this chat, and I know most of you personally, if I don't know you personally, I know you quite closely in some way, shape or form. we, having been educated at Beth Rivka or in Kesed Torah or in Cheder in Sydney, because I know that there's some Sydney people on here as well, we have been educated with a Hasidic lens. That means that the glasses that we are wearing today are Hasidic glasses. We have never been exposed to a Yiddishkeit that did not have some way of Hasidic thinking. So what I'm going to propose to you today is, you're not that worker in the factory who started peeling carrots and never understood why. You got the induction for your job. You got the proper way, where someone said, do you know what we're working on here? We're working on this really big thing. You're going to have a very small job in a very small area, but you're part of this much bigger goal, this bigger atmosphere, this bigger achievement that our company wants to give. And so today is about us appreciating a little bit further who we are, and what we know already to infuse us with more chayas. So I've been thinking a lot, and I do this, every so often. I think about sort of like, so before I go to what I do in, to inspire my life, but I want to first go and talk to you a couple of things about, I just call them the W's of Hasidus, because there were just a whole bunch of reasons why I thought that Hasidus is something that inspires me. And, some of it is what Dr. Loewenthal has been speaking about, but, I think I'll just go through them, and maybe some of these resonate with you, because to explain Hasidus is very, very hard. But to maybe say that what I feel personally it gives to me is a lot easier. So that first one, it was a W, is for the word whole, as in whole understanding of the world. Because as I just explained to you with that business analogy, it gives you this whole understanding of the network of everything. And I don't know if you know many young people your age who don't have a Hasidic background or knowledge. You don't need to come from a Lubavitch family to have a Hasidic background, knowledge or understanding. But very few young people really understand or have ever been explicitly taught where they fit in the world, where they have a picture and understanding of what is the purpose of the world, what is the meaning of the world, where do I fit in the world. How very few kids, Jewish kids in particular do, but kids with a Hasidic education, you guys, you wake up in the morning, someone has clearly explained to you how you can have a really positive impact on the world. And I know that you might be sitting there, some of you are in ISO like me, some of you are just in lockdown. We're all just, seeing a bit of senselessness sometimes in bits of our lives and wondering when things are going to end. But how lucky we are that we actually know what the point is. We actually have that picture of this is why we're doing it. Now, on some days, we don't feel it. On some days, we are involved in other things that take us away from who we really are and what we really want to achieve and what Hashem and what the Rebbe teaches us, what Hashem wants from us. But even so, you have this understanding and you can come back to it. And it is human to stray from it, but it is also human and it is Jewish and is Hasidic to want to come back to it all the time, because we are those dancing flames that are constantly striving to be closer to Hashem. So the first one is whole understanding of the world. And the next one is a little bit connected, which is who you are and how you work. So, the beautiful thing with the Baal Shem Tov is the Baal Shem Tov living in this generation of so much suffering and so much pain and so much negativity that the Jewish people had experienced. What he actually did, he wasn't the Gadol Hadar at the time that was a recognized Gadol Hadar, right? So he wasn't, they were big Talmidei Chachamim, they were big teachers, they were Rosh Yeshiva, they were huge people. And the Baal Shem Tov looked at them and he said, what's going on is wrong. What's going on is not right. Because the leaders of our generation don't even appreciate the value of a Jew. The leaders of our generation do not even show love, show respect for the holiness and the honor of a Jew. And so the Baal Shem Tov turns it all on its head. And for us, it's like a really big thing. You know, in our generation, we sometimes look at ourselves, you know, as people who don't have value, where Yeridas Hadoras, the generations are getting worse and worse. Who am I? I'm a little nothing. And the Baal Shem Tov brings to the fore who you really are and your innate value. So, you know, Hasidus is so amazing, because the minute you start to recognize the power of your neshama, the fact that your neshama is, you know, this real piece of Hashem, like, you know, the Alter Rebbe takes it one step further and doesn't say, it's not a piece of Hashem, it's mamish, it's a real piece of Hashem. So that is such a value. The other thing with who you are, like Dr. Loewenthal mentioned, Tanya, which really does explain to us, where do our thoughts come from? Where do our feelings come from? How can we work through our whole system? And, you know, if you read any modern day psychology, like some of the theories, you know, and most of those theories, if I'm not incorrect, are 100 years or less. Am I correct in that? You know, they're very modern things. So these modern theories of cognitive behavior therapy, which Tanya is basically cognitive behavior therapy. Like, Tanya is just all about how do we train our thoughts to be able to refine our feelings to be able to better our actions, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? So Tanya, 200 years ago, was already telling people. So I think such a beautiful thing. And I want to skip to another point of where you're at. When you read Tanya, what you actually realize is that Tanya is not speaking to a tzaddik. Tanya is speaking to a regular Joe Blow, a regular person sitting in her house in 2021 that has a phone, that has apps on it that are maybe not the best, that, you know, sometimes doesn't always want to dress they want to wear a dress, that wants to watch things that are probably not the best for them, that says things that are probably not the best for them. Tanya recognizes that people aren't tzaddikim. Tanya recognizes, and, you know, the Alter Rebbe, who was a tzaddik, and we know everything that Alter Rebbe writes about tzaddik, and I don't know where you guys are, like, different people have learned different year levels of Hasidus, you know, from Beth Rivka, the curriculum, but, you know, the tzaddik who is so refined, who does not have any Yetzer Hara, it's totally whatever the word is, subservient, it's totally gone, he's eradicated it. The Alter Rebbe is that tzaddik, or even the higher level of tzaddik that doesn't even have, right? But the Alter Rebbe is talking to the Beinani. The Beinani has a healthy Yetzer Hara. And the Alter Rebbe is also talking to the person who is not yet a Beinani, because at the end of the day, why would you write a book for Beinanim if they're already Beinanim? So Alter Rebbe recognizes that the person who is reading Tanya is someone who is doing the wrong thing, someone who falls, someone who stumbles, someone who isn't inspired, someone who doesn't get excited about davening, someone who doesn't get excited about mitzvahs, sometimes does choose good things. And so Tanya and Hasidus knows where we are at. It values who we are inside, recognizing that we make mistakes, recognizing that we have faults. So it's, you know, Hasidus speaks to us and inspires us to say, don't be let down. Don't think of yourself as, I'm not that angel. You know, oh, there are some girls in my class, they don't want to listen to the radio, but I love to listen to the radio. So for me, I'm not on that level. I'll never be them. Tanya doesn't speak like that. Tanya is speaking to everybody. And in fact, Tanya directly addresses the people who, you know, it directly addresses the fact that there are some people who have no real desire to sin. You know, they have no real desire to do naughty things. Tanya says, no, I'm talking to the people who dafka have desire to sin, who dafka do the wrong thing. So far, what have we done in the W's? We've done a whole understanding of the world, who you are and how you work, where you're at. So all these W's where Hasidus, I feel, is just like speaking to me. The next one is sort of the why to practice as a Jew. And this one was the one that really came to me. So even though I don't come from a Chabad family myself, I say I'm Chabad from birth, if you will, only for the simple reason that my entire education from when I'm 3 years old is with a Hasidic lens. So in a way, I don't know how to not not think in a Hasidic way about Yiddishkeit, about Hashem, about the effect of Torah mitzvahs, about, you know, the connection you have when you do Torah mitzvahs. However, I work in a school where Hasidus is not what's taught. And when I first started to work in this school, one thing that really hit me was that these kids, although they go to a modern Orthodox school and they have an understanding of every Chag and what we do on the Chag and what the minhagim are, and that there's halachot and what the makar is and the 5 names of Shavuos and, you know, and what Haftarah we read on Rosh Hashanah, like they know all that stuff. But what I noticed as I was teaching them was what was missing was that they didn't really get why. So they knew all the whats and they knew all the hows, but I sort of like, and then, you know, some of the kids, I knew that they had had a teacher who maybe would have given them, but really I felt that something was missing from them in the why. And that made me take a further appreciation for, you know, what I have in Hasidus, and it's something that I teach, you know, now whenever I get an opportunity to be able to bring in a bit of Hasidic thought, because it is really the energy and the chayas that gives Torah mitzvahs that why and that power. So the next W is women. What Hasidus says is it talks about the value of the neshama, the value of the Jew, and it's not. If you read Hasidus as that, it does not differentiate between man and woman. Woman is just, it's just Jew. It's not about woman as much as man. It's just, you know, the relationship between a neshama and Hashem. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's a man or it's a woman. It's like that, you know, all the cosmic stuff, like Dr. Loewenthal said, about what happens when you do a mitzvah, what happens to with your connection to Hashem, what happens to the world, all that stuff happens whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't. If you're a Jew and you're reaching out to Hashem, all that amazing stuff is happening, and that's incredibly empowering in a world where we're constantly told that as women we are less than. And I say that not because I think that pre the feminist movement there was definitely women not having the opportunities. Currently, women have more opportunities that they've ever had, but then there are other negatives from the opportunities, right? Because now women are mothers, but they also have careers, and that it brings in itself, a challenge. But this idea that here, it's got nothing to do with your gender. It's got nothing to do with male or female. It's just you and Hashem. And that is incredibly empowering because it takes being a woman off the table as regards to the importance of your connection to Hashem. On the other hand, Hasidus also enhances and sees that the role of a woman and the unique role of a woman is, and there's a lot of Kabbalah and Hasidus that really explains the unique role of a woman that also allows us to celebrate how special we are. And then if we look further, it's also, you see in practice. I mean, I can't think of a more empowering thing than to watch. I have a friend, she's a shlucha in Palm Beach, Florida. She has a very large family. She's done this, she runs a Chabad house with her husband. She's currently doing Sefer HaMitzvos on Instagram daily. By the way, it's really amazing. I love watching it. Her name's Chanchi Krinsky. You can follow her, whatever. I forgot what her Instagram handle is, but anyway. She runs this Chabad house. She has all these beautiful children. She is learned. She recently just adopted a baby out of someone in her kihila who passed away, and they had a baby. Female empowerment. I see it every day with every shlucha. I look at people. Look at your teachers. Look at what Hasidus has done for these women in inspiring them to be beacons of light to communities and have massive impacts on people. I don't know if anyone is familiar with, let's say, the Friendship Circle in Detroit. I forgot what her first name is. Miri, remind me what her name is. Who runs Friendship Circle in Detroit? This woman, Basi Shem Tov. This woman recognized in her community that there were children with disabilities. She thought of how can we create an outreach program for these kids. And she literally invented the friendship circle, invented by a woman, invented by a Jewish woman, invented by a Hasidic woman. And that is now, there's branches of the friendship circle all over the world, in Sydney, in Melbourne, you know, in tens of different countries, in almost every state of America. You know, if you ever do go to Detroit, there's this amazing, I think it's called the Life Center or the Life Community. They've literally built an entire shopping mall for people with disabilities, to be able to teach them life skills and amazing stuff. The power of a woman. So Hasidus definitely takes gender off the table and says, are you a neshama? Do you have a Hashem? You know, learn, feel, do, understand, grow, and gives that power. And it comes, where does it come from? It comes from this idea that the focus is on the why. And if we're focused on the neshama and we're focused on the why, it doesn't matter. The next W I have is world connection. And I did this because I felt like Hasidus gives me two world connections. Number one, it gives me this connection with anything that's happening around the world. It gives me sort of a way to understand it based on, and that could be things that's happening in the news. It could be when I go to a certain location or a certain country. It's sort of a way at looking at things, but it also gives me world connections because I really do feel connected around the world. And you know, whether it's old OC girls that you had a connection with, shluchot that you had, you know, shluchim that you know from all different places around the world. And I know that most of you can show off some very exotic places. Not everyone is as well connected as a Loewenthal, but you know, this idea that Hasidim Mishpacha, that we're connected by our belief system, or we're connected by our ideology. As Jews, we feel it. You know, you're traveling in some random airport in Thailand, you hear someone speak Hebrew, you feel like, oh, I mean, Papa, you know, I'm with Mishpacha and whatever. It's the same thing with Hasidim. And I've experienced it before a number of times. There's something that aligns us, so it really does bring this world connection together. I saw a beautiful mashal about Hasidus, which is the idea of what Hasidus is, and I think it's the Rabbi who brings this, but I saw Manis Friedman explain this. Manis Friedman says that Yiddishkeit or Torah or Yiddishkeit is water. It's like water. Water is our life. It's everything. It gives us. It is the basis of a lot of existence. You know, of all of existence. Water is a massive part of it. And according to halacha, water is something that never can become tameh. Water is something. By the way, can you tell me if I'm going over time? Because I have no idea what the time is. I'm just like going.
You're all good.
So water water can never become tameh. For example, if a person was tameh and they went into a mikvah, the mikvah never becomes tameh. The water in the mikvah still remains pure. So water can never become tameh, and so too with water physically, water can never become polluted. Now, you might say, one second, Mrs. Wonder, I have seen the Yarra River. The Yarra River is definitely polluted. I've never seen the River Thames, but I'm sure the River Thames is very polluted, and you would not want to drink the water. I see a big, vigorous nod there from our London contingent. So the thing is that even though there are pollutants in the water itself is not polluted. So, but you'll say, but one second, it's murky and it's dirty and there's algae and there's dust and there's yuckiness. Okay, so how could you get the water out? The water there's a pollution in the water, but the water itself is not polluted. The water itself is still able to be unpolluted. So how? You heat up the water, and when you heat up the water, you burn out all the pollutants. Or which is really funny because, you know, I feel like I'm tied in with both the Loewenthals, but Musi's grandfather, you know, who was busy boiling the water over there for the extrapolation experiment, you know, you boil out the water, you get the steam, and you've separated the pollutant from the water. And the water, once again, is pure, once again, is clean, once again, is gorgeous. So, and drinkable and healthy and life. So water is not something that can ever be ruined. And it's exactly the same with Torah, mitzvahs, and with Yiddishkeit. Sometimes what happens is our lives, which are filled with Torah, mitzvahs, and Yiddishkeit, get filled with pollutants. They get filled with things that distract us, things that actually desensitize us, things that turn us off. Like actually, even though we know that Yiddishkeit and Torah are good for us, sometimes the stuff that we're dealing with, other things that we're busy with in our lives, we're actually getting turned off from Torah and Yiddishkeit. And it's happening conscious. And Tanya talks a lot about this. There's no such thing as neutral. You know, the Alter Rebbe talks a lot about the fact that in Tanya you know, things are either elokus or the absolute opposite of elokus. And there's nothing that's parav. You stop, don't fool yourself and think that you can sit on a fence. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Point is that water, that heating of the mixed up water separated what was good and what was bad. And this is Chassidus. Chassidus is the fire. Chassidus is that Bunsen burner that is sitting under that beaker of polluted water. Chassidus warms you up. It fires you up. It gets you inspired. It gets you excited. And then you are able to separate the pollutant from the pure and holy water. And you might have felt this. You might have felt this at a Fabringen. You might have felt this in singing in Nigan. You might have felt this in learning something. You might have felt this in a chavrusa that you had with one of your amazing shluchot. You might have felt it at camp, which I think, you know, many of us have experienced this together, right? This idea of, you know, so I'm going to call, you know, it's not a W. It's in this mashal, Chassidus is not the water, but I'm using the W for the water because I just need lots of W's because I am Avigail Wonder. And then the final W I wanted to give you was the will from the heart. The Rebbe talks so much about doing mitzvahs b'simcha over tuv levav, about doing Torah mitzvahs with simcha and with happiness and with joy. And I feel like Chassidus is so much about what gives us that. And in fact, the avodah of Chassidim, that was actually what made people turn off from Chassidim at the very beginning, was about simcha and about dancing and nigunim and tefillah b'simcha and Fabrengens. These are the things that warm us up. They fire us up, and we do need inspiration. So the last thing I'll leave you with, because I could go on forever, but I don't want to, is, you know, there's a thing in psychology that when a person is feeling incredibly anxious and they're feeling totally overwhelmed, that you can use a grounding technique. And some of you might be familiar with it. It's a very well-known strategy of grounding, of helping yourself sort of calm down from panic or calm down from where you're feeling that fight or flight response and or freeze, or you're just not coping. So there's a grounding technique where you can think about, where you just say to yourself, okay, what are 5 things that I can see? Okay, and sort of you look around and you say, okay, I see the cupboard, I see the curtain, I see the lamp, I see the cup, I see the mouse, I see the computer. And they say, what are 4 things that I can hear? I can hear my daughter laughing in the other room. I can hear my computer whirring. I can hear my voice. Then 3 things that I can touch, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. It's a beautiful grounding technique, very advised, you know, before an exam or in a type of. But actually, you could use this grounding technique to help you in Chassidus, to help you in your life. Rather than doing it about the 5 senses for grounding, do it the 5 senses for flying in Chassidus. The 5 senses, how do I feel Chassidus? How do I feel the connection to Hashem, the connection to the Rebbe, a connection to my understanding? How do I see it in my life? What am I seeing? What am I looking at? What am I smelling? Do I smell good Fabringen in my house? And one thing that, like, you know, my husband and I always said that, we want our house to be a house of Fabringens. And, you know, some people laugh at me because sometimes I let the shluchim come to my house and have a Fabringen in my house till like 4 o'clock in the morning. And literally I'm lying in bed, like texting my friend saying they're still singing. And she's like, how do you let this happen? How do you let them do it? Why would you even do that? You have to go to work tomorrow. And I'm like, I want the sounds of Chassidus or the smell of a Fabringen in the morning to be what's around in my house, because I want this to be, you know, There are some families that stay up all night to watch a soccer World Cup in Rio de Janeiro, and they're up till 4 o'clock in the morning. I want that in my family, we should be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's the things that we choose. What do I choose to taste? What foods am I going to eat? What words am I going to say? So what taste in my mouth am I going to have about the things I say to other people? What smell? What touch? So really, let's use those 5 senses to ground. So I hope I sort of stayed a little bit to the topic, which is, Hasidus, I've learned it. This is how I live it. Well, actually, this is why I live it. And I'll tell you one thing, unlike all of you, I live in a world of Gashmias. I live in a world of, materialism. There are things we want. There are things we do that waste our time. There are things we're interested in that aren't always ideal. We're all on a level, but, how lucky are we as Hasidim to have this amazing pair of glasses to wear. It's not even really a pair of glasses. Hasidus is, I can't even limit Hasidus to just a pair of glasses. It's like this, it's the neshama of everything we are as Yidden. So a good Yom Tov to everybody. And now that we're 12 days before Rosh Hashanah, the next 12 days are a time for us to really refine ourselves with Sor Meirah, with Asay Tov, getting rid of the negative, adding in the positive to prepare ourselves for Rosh Hashanah. And
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for all the W's, Abigail Wonder. We definitely can take so much from that. And if I can definitely take more than 5 points from what you just said into my own practical life, which really shows why we live it and how to really take it into our personal lives. So I'm sure every single one of you guys had at least one thing to take into your personal lives that you can take from that incredible message for us. Actually, we have a video, but I just wanted to point right after the video, we have something else that Musi will be introducing, and Abigail has very wonderfully touched on it. So over to the video.
In a letter to his brother-in-law, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, founder of the Hasidic movement, writes, on Rosh Hashanah 5507, 1746, my soul ascended on high through the Kabbalistic method known to you. When I reached the chamber of the Mashiach, I asked him, Master, when will you finally come? The Mashiach answered, when your wellsprings of Hasidism spread outwards.
Zwischen diese Puri, was angekommen von der Ravre Motka Akem Perlo, was gewähnt kam schon, in dem Chitmimi Milubavitch, do a Wort, was gehört von dem Maschgiach, von dem Signach Sidim Bismane, was eine von der Wetter und eine von der Skene mir gewähnt, wie ruft der Mann, der Michol Bline. Der Michol der Alte, der Michol Nerle. Eine von der Mann von den Unionen, was pflegt reden und nie bechasern, und bis dann der Deutsche sehen, was das sicher gehört von ihm, ist pflegt teilen mit den Talmiden, aber schaß mir lernen Chassidus, und als sie bei mir sich verstanden, aber schaß mir lernen Teire Bechlau, darf da sein, nicht wie mir lernt, oder wie mir lehnt fremde Briefe. Was mir lehnt, was tut sich im Himmel. Nur mir will wissen sein, das meint mir nicht allein. Nur gebracht auf den Ruf am Moschel. Als am Moleke Zeiten gewähnt Jeschuvnike, das heißt Iden, was sie pflegen mit Zeit Parnosse, pflegen sie leben in einer Städtel oder in einer Nord, wo sie seine gewähnt oder sehr wenig Iden, oder sie seine gewähnt mehr nicht wie der Jeschuvnik allein. במשך הזמן, durch Abgerissenkeit von der jüdischen Zwiebel und nicht von der Möglichkeit von Lernen in Yeshivas und Chadorim, ist gewöhnt zwischen sie als eine, was nicht guckendig, was Bechlau Yeshuvnik ist jene Zeiten, seine gewöhnt Größe ihrer Schamayim, Aber wenn auch sehr viele Heder Haidi, bis wann wird nicht gekommen kleine. Ich wusste gewähnt der Seder, als etliche Schulnikes werden sich zusammenreden auf Dingen, als am Lamed für ihre Kinder, und man pflegt wegsetzen dem Lamed in ein Ort, was sie gewähnt in Melcha Kaschowe, in ein Ort, was sie bequem für die alle Schulnikes, was haben Kinder, was leben in die Mekemis, in die Städtlich herum, in die Schuhe herum. Is einmal jetzt eine von den Schulniken ist angekommen ein Brief mit Mokim Rochik. Als hat nicht gekonnt lehnen, hat gegeben den Brief lehnen dem Lamed, was sie haben gedungen, dass lernen mit den Kindern von der alle Schulniken sich mit seinen Kindern. Der Bescheid der Lamed hat angegeben lehnen den Brief und hat sich gewähnt am Lamed am Molle gezeichnet, wenn der Klaggelenk ohne Kudis gelehnt, wie sie das zu sein mit der Atome, hat sich herausgewiesen, dass der Zeichen von Briefe gewesen, als hat sich gefällt dem Jeschuvniks Vater in Verkennen. Ich beschaß, hat das durchgelehnt, hat der Jeschuvnik gehalscht. Schlägt mich auch mit sein zu den Talmidim, als ich schreibt der Pirlo. Als ihr Herzachheim, den Brief hat gelehnt der Melamed. Und der Jeschuvnik nicht wenig gewusst, was steht im Brief, nicht kann lehnen in der Brief, auch viel als wollte mit Nikudis, Allah es kam wie kam es in der Chonikulis. Ich sag von deswegen nicht, weil ich sag nicht verstanden, Chalischen hat gedacht, Chalischen, oder der was sagt, wie die Sache geschrieben im Brief, und was weiß die Meinung, nicht oder der was hört das von der Zweiten. Von deswegen wird gechalischt, der Jeschuvnik nicht der Melamed. Weil was ist der Terz auf dem, beim Melamed ist das ein fremder Ried, beim Jeschuvnik ist das ein Tate. והנים שולמו, בשעס מלרן חסידס, und meint, dass zweitens Tate kann lernen Chassidus und kann wissen, als was steht und kann lernen ohne Kudus und lernen richtig, aber auf alle Kinder hat nicht Chalischen. Bischaß ist aber auch viele lernen als Zweiter, hat aber wissen, dass meint man lernen, dass es sein Tate, dass es sein Lawinische Baschamayim wird der Chalischen. Sie da sehen, was Steinen, als darf sich nicht verlernen mit der Vorzitz am Marionis Schutze. Und darf sich nicht verlernen mit Versprechen Niedigkeit darum sich. Und darf nicht sein, die Mahade nach dieser Kauschel, die wir Sefrim, der Fall ist also da Ajid, was älter von ihm und Klieger von ihm und Frimer von ihm und tut das sich nicht. In der Territz ist, jener Ried meint, dass es lässt sich wegen der zweiten Safote. Ich bemühe, jener hat das Teuse, dass das nicht kein Territz, als darf ich das Teuse haben. Und der Hadroche Klolis ist, dass das lässt sich wegen der Wienische Baschamayim, ist das wegen jeder Rieden Segen im Vater. Als tracht auf Vater Majones Schutze, ich bringe Maschichen. Aber nicht mehr meint, dass soll mehr für sein, soll bringen Maschichen, ist nicht sein Business. Darf durchlehnen den Brief als Zweiten. Und der Miebergema, der Balschemte, wird geschrieben, als Demot, was ja Futze, meine Sache, Futze, Kossi, mal Malke Maschiche. Und die lehnt den Brief, den Jeschuvnik, und danach geht sie sich weg und tut sich, was wenn kommt ist. Wie kaum und kam Pomi, wie der Rebbe der Bala Elul hat gesagt, dass sie die letzte Tage in Golos, und der Rebbe der brennende Wend von Golos. Und sie auch tot, jetzt in Biad Romo, ist schon jeder Piule, was man gekonnt hat, und mit tut nicht, halt mir sich auf, schinte, wie Schisch im Liebe bei Israel, noch ein Rebbe in Golos. Und für was tut man das? Der Fall ist, hat sich angeschmust, dass sie jenem Stadt und mehr nicht der Dolmetscher, was der Melamed, was darf durchlehnen, dem Jeschuvnik, was steht im Brief. Weil das ist sicher der Hero, was man gesehen von Bala Elul, zusammen damit, was geheißen hat, zweiten Tag. Ist nicht nur, was sich heute gewähnt, mit der Lernen Kabbalah mit der zweiten, noch Siris mit der zweiten. Wir kann jetzt über sehr gelernt alle bis mit der zweiten. Und gelernt werden lebend viel mit der Zweiten. Und gelernt, was sie mit der Bewohnen haben, soll essen Koscher mit der Zweiten. Was jeder Bewohnen der Zweiten nicht, er soll essen Koscher nicht mit Glas Fleisch, Koscher gepschüttet, ohne keine Idul. Und nicht dem Hefische Base, und das hat ihn gedacht haben, dachte dem Libavischen Rebbe, mit Mal und Mokke. Sie konnte das geschicken, die Mischores wollte das sicher die einem erklären. Und aber getan ist, dass sie gekommen wohl, ja doch, ist das Simen, das ist sein Bild. Und dass nicht der Führer der Fall ist, darf jene Matzel sein, der Fall ist, darf sich Matzel sein. Und durch wird sich Matzel sein.
Okay, so we just spent a solid hour hearing about the beauty of Hasidus and what Hasidus has to add to our lives and how it is the why of everything that we do. And it just gives us so much beauty when it comes to Judaism. Now, we are exactly 12 days away from one of the greatest days on the Jewish calendar, the day of Rosh Hashanah. And this is the day, as Hasidus tells us, this is the day where we are crowning Hashem as our king, and we are going to stand in shul, hopefully, Mirza Hashem, hopefully be in Yerushalayim or Kodesh. If not, it will hopefully be in your local shul. But we are going to be standing, and even if it's not at shul, you're going to hear it at home, but we're going to hear the shofar blow. And when that shofar blows, we are going to, each of us, hopefully individually say, Hashem, I want you to be my king this year. Now, to get to that point is a journey. And we know that Elul is the time the king is in the field, which means that he's ready to greet us however we are, whatever we've done in the past year, however we're dressed, whether that be physically, how do you look when you go and meet a king, or spiritually, what does that mean? What is your clothes, being your thoughts, your speech, and your actions, how do they reflect who you are? So Elul is the time where we take a cheshbon nefesh, we do a stock take of our entire year, and we reflect on that year and see what do we have to improve, and we get ourselves ready to crown Hashem as king on Rosh Hashanah. Now, Chai Elul is exactly 12 days away from Rosh Hashanah, and we're told that each of these 12 days corresponds to one of the months in the Jewish calendar. Each day, of these 12 days, we're meant to reflect on a specific day. So tomorrow, on Thursday, you would reflect on the month of Tishrei. On Friday, you would do Cheshvan, etc., until you get to Elul, which would be Erev Rosh Hashanah. So we are going to be having our own walk through monthly reflections from our very own Beth Rivka girls. So we are going to call upon our reflection people. I don't know how to put that in a nice English word, but if you are one of our reflectors, please come on camera. And our first speaker is
Elisa Steinberg. So Elisa Steinberg will be telling us how Tishrei really, how you can reflect on Tishrei and how you can kind of bring that into the month of Tishrei. So starting from tomorrow, that is the month that each of you guys will reflect on. And yes, Elisa Steinberg, you're going to hit it off.
Hi. I was going to put a Tishrei thing in my background, but I was having trouble. Anyway, I think that Tishrei is such an important month because it has all the important holidays like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. And it's such a spiritual time, and I feel so much more uplifted during Tishrei than usual, because Tishrei kind of signifies a new start over, a chance to make the next year better than the previous year, a chance to make ourselves a better person than we were in the previous year. This is signified by like Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the new year, and Yom Kippur, which is all about reflection and asking for forgiveness from Hashem. So Tishrei is like an annual reminder that we're being given a fresh start and we shouldn't waste that. And I just think that's really important because I think everyone needs a fresh start once in a while, especially on a spiritual level. I also love Tishrei because it's a great time to spend with family and friends. You know, you sit down at your meal, you have great food, you can interact with them. It's also a bit of a break from the rest of the school year. You know, you have the chance to catch up, you have the chance to go to shul. I think that's really great. I think Tishrei is one of the best times to catch up and talk with your family and friends. That you can focus on that a lot in that time. Also, I think especially during this time of lockdowns, I think it's kind of important that Tishrei gives us a new start because I bet lockdown has kind of made us all, it's a bit monotonous, and we kind of need a break from that. We need to go to shul, we need to focus more on our relationship with Hashem, and I think Tishrei offers that, and it's really great. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Elisa, for sharing.
I just want to jump in for 1 second. Matzah Shabbos, we're going to be having a really special program for Pri Slichas, and I want to thank Elisa in advance, because Elisa and Hannah and her sisters are a singing duo, singing group, and they're actually going to be joining our Matzah Shabbos program. So we're looking forward to hearing the songs of Tishrei in preparation this Matzah Shabbos, Sydney and Melbourne together.
We're so excited. That's so good to hear. Everybody come. We all want to see you there, especially with the Steinberg sisters. They are incredible. Next, we will be having Dina Zaimer talking and reflecting on Cheshvan.
Hi, guys. So the month of Cheshvan, it's also called Mar Cheshvan, but we can also call it Cheshvan. And Cheshvan is the month that has no Yomim Tovim, no special mitzvahs associated with the month, but there is this whole hype from the month of Elul and Tishrei that we've just come out of, where we had Yomim Tovim and we had special days in those months, and then we're back to our daily reality. So I guess for me and for everyone to take from the month is that we shouldn't be bitter following the special holy high holidays, but rather take the sweetness from Rosh Hashanah, the seriousness that we came from on Yom Kippur, and Sukkot and Simchas Torah, the joyous time that we had, and we should be able to, I guess, keep going on a spiritual high, apply it to our lives, take all the inspiration for the remainder of the year. And an additional thought about Cheshvan is that they say that it's a reserved time, the month, for when Mashiach comes and we have the inauguration of the third Beit HaMikdash. So when the Beit HaMikdash comes, that we will have an even greater Yom Tov than we've had before. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that you guys can all take from Cheshvan.
Thank you, Dina, for making it so practical for all of us. Over to Chaya Stern for the month of Kislev.
Hi guys, so my month is Kislev. So as everyone probably know, there are many key events, key dates in Kislev. So I'll start off, there's Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which is when the Rebbe came back from having his heart attack. There's Yud Dalet, when the Rebbe and Rebbetzin had their anniversary. There's Yud Tes, which is when the Alter Rebbe was released from prison. And then it's Chaf Hei, which is the month that we all know, the date that we are all know is Kislev, which is Hanukkah. So the common denominator between all of these events is that they're all revealed miracles, at least what they appear, but they all start off as something, which is something that appeared negative, which when the Rebbe had a heart attack, it seemed disastrous, terrible, but it became a big Yom Tov when he got out, when the Alter Rebbe was really was accused, and then it seemed disastrous. He got out of prison, and it was an even better miracle. And then with Hanukkah, when the Greeks defiled the Beis HaMikdash, it seemed literally terrible. But we know it as such a great miracle because the Chashmonaim recaptured the Beis HaMikdash, and there's the whole miracle of the oil. So we know Kislev to be a very open miracle, revealed good, but it's really Helen Hester, revealed good behind all the stuff that appear at first, not actually real good. So as Dina was saying, what you can take from Kislev is we're in lockdown now, and everything appears really bad, really negative. But as with all the key dates in Kislev, there is something hopefully that we'll be able to come out of good, out of lockdown, which we'll hopefully be able to see soon.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chaya. And we can spread all that light, right? As I can see, there's a lot of light coming from your Kislev background. Next, we're coming over to Perry Wolf for the month of Teves.
Okay, so Teves. We learn in Kabbalah that every month has a letter of the alphabet associated with it. So Teves has the letter Ayin, which has the numerical value of 70. And it is no coincidence that on the first Shabbos of Teves, we read about the 70 souls that came down to Egypt with Yaakov and all his grandchildren. And in the Torah, it mentions 70 a lot of times. And so 70 has other significance to it. Earlier on in the Torah, in Bereshit, it talks about the people building the Tower of Babel. And all of a sudden, Hashem made a miracle that they all spoke different languages. And those were the 70 languages of all the nations now. They all spoke, that's why they all turned to speak all those 70 different languages. So 70 therefore symbolizes the complete range of human viewpoints, which is the languages. In this light, the 70 souls who descended to Egypt represent the entirety of the Jewish nation, and the experience in Egypt would be engraved on the national consciousness for all time. What they experienced in Egypt still lives with us today because we celebrate Pesach every year. So that's what 70 signifies then. But then also in the desert, when Moshe had to make the Sanhedrin, Hashem ordered him to gather 70 people of the Sanhedrin because we learn that each point in the Torah has 70 explanations. So by having 70 people in Sanhedrin, you could see all viewpoints of what people are saying, all the 70 viewpoints. Tying this all back to the month of Teves and its significance of 70, it is interesting to note that Teves focuses on the Beit HaMikdash in two perspectives. First, Rosh Chodesh Teves is Hanukkah, the last day of Hanukkah, which celebrates the return to the Beit HaMikdash. And secondly, the 10th of Teves marks the siege around Jerusalem, which is the fast of the Asar B'Teves. These are opposite reminders of our Jewish heritage and national unity. To be a united people, we must value all the varied options that exist among us. To enjoy the benefits of the Torah, we must appreciate all of its facets, which is represented by the number 70.
Thank you very much, Perry. We're now going to call on Shana Gottlieb to talk about the month of Shvat. Whenever you're ready, Shana.
So my month Shvat it's like the month of, it has a special day of Tu Shvat in it, and it's like the new year for the trees, and like the trees grow, right? So, and also how I have grown in like these past few months leading up to Tishrei was like adapting to like the high school life with like all the different schedules, or like the different environment, and all the responsibility. And high school, it's like helped me grow and achieve goals that like I wouldn't have thought would be achievable. And like life is also hard as it is, and like as well as having like all the lockdowns and COVID, like all of it is like helped me grow and be more aware and more grateful that like everything comes from Hashem, and like everything is up to Hashem, and like life is more than just being on your phone, and just like make the most of life.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shana, for telling us how we can grow as we learn from the month of Shvat. We're now going to call on Mia Eckstein to reflect on the month of Adar.
So getting it up. Hi everyone. So as Musi said, I'll be talking about happiness, specifically in Adar, and how I increased my happiness and shared it with others. So we all know the month of Adar to be a month of joy, but what really matters is what you do about it. So normally people see me as a happy person, which I am, but I'm also a little bit of a pessimist, and I struggle to look at the little positive things. So in the beginning of the year, before Purim, everyone was remembering last year and how the day after Purim, lockdown started. But this year in Adar, what made me even more grateful about Purim and Adar was the fact that I was able to spend it with everyone and share my happiness and joy with others, even simply by going to the old HM and being able to share my joy, even simply by smiling. So This year I learned so much from trying that little bit harder to be more joyous and appreciate the little things and be happy. Because every smile and kind act not only makes you happy, but it also makes the people you're surrounded with happy. So I definitely recommend reflecting and trying to be more happy and more joyous, because it will increase your happiness and make everyone else around you happy.
Shkoyach Mia. Very, very practical takeaway to add a little bit of joy into our lives, especially, as Elisa said, during the monotony of lockdown. We're now going to call on Hadar Suskin to reflect on the month of Nisan.
Hi, can you see me? Oh, hear me?
Yeah, we can see and hear you.
The month of Nisan is very special because it's the month that celebrates Pesach. Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman explains that there are no names for the months in the Torah, but the Torah always remember the numbers, like first, second, and third. And Nisan was the first month that the miracle of Yetziat Mitzrayim took place. My question was, how did you leave your personal boundaries this year? And at the beginning of the year, I was not interested in sport at all. But as soon as I found that we were going to be in lockdown for a bit longer, I decided that I had to start to do something that would benefit me. So I started to run, and now every day when I run, I feel like I've accomplished something new. And every day I gradually add more minutes and to my run, and then I can definitely see my progress. And this year, I think that you should try something new, and you never know, you might like it.
Thank you, Hadar Suskin. That was amazing. Thank you for joining us all the way from Feathertop. I love that new kind of thing that you started in lockdown, guys. It's so important to get out there, keep moving, and especially taking that lesson from Nisan and making it so practical. Next, we have Golda Lida, who will be reflecting on the month of Iyar.
Hi, everyone. So I once was, I don't know, I just came across this Gemara, which it was saying how there's this debate about how to spell the month of Iyar, whether it's with one yod or with two yods. And they were there was this one opinion that because of this debate, when you give gets, which when you give gets on during the month of Iyar, you have to actually give two, one with one yod, one with two yods. And then nowadays we just do two yods because that's the common way. But there was also this other opinion that said how in the month of Iyar, because of this debate, you can't give any gets at all. And I thought that was really cute, and it shows how this little yod can bring so much good into the world, and and it just shows how every small little thing can bring so much happiness and stuff like that.
Amazing. Thank you, Golda. It really shows us the importance of one seemingly tiny little thing. We're now going to call on Shira Rabin to talk about the month of Sivan.
Hi, so Sivan is the month where we receive the Torah. So I wanted to talk about how I grew in Torah study in the past year. So last year during Jewish studies lessons, I would try to pay attention, but I never really found an interest in it, and I just never thought it was relatable or applicable to my life. So this year I decided to try a lot harder and try to relate Torah actually to my life. And at first it was hard, especially with lockdown, but it really got easier as it went on. And now I really look forward to Torah-based subjects, and I enjoy learning them. And this year I also made an extra effort to say chitas every day, and I'm really grateful that I decided to try, because I feel like it really benefited my life, and I feel like it just made such a change to how I act and how I just portray myself. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the month of Tammuz, which is going to be reflected on by Ruti Huppert.
Hi. So the month of Tammuz is about the Beit HaMikdash, and so a few bad things happened in Tammuz, and one of them was Moshe smashed the first tablets, and the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Romans during the Second Temple. So, my question is, what did you do to bring the Beit HaMikdash and Mashiach closer? And like, what I think that I should do is like do more Torah and mitzvah and like help people whenever I can. And I think everyone else should try and do that so we can bring Mashiach and hopefully bring the Beit HaMikdash as well.
Amazing. Thank you. Definitely everyone, shoot a message to a friend, say hi, add a tiny little act of kindness, and we're all going to bring Mashiach that much closer so we can, continue this together, this Farbrengen together with Mashiach now. In the meantime, while we're waiting for him to come, which he's going to do any moment, we're going to have Libby Lipska talk about the month of Av.
So Av is about rebuilding. The Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, but that means it's going to be rebuilt. As we know from the story with Rabbi Akiva, Av also has Tu B'Av, the day where the girls would dance in the fields, which is one of the happiest days in the Jewish calendar. Av is a month that has good and bad situations. A bad situation that I have and am going through is lockdown. But instead of thinking about lockdown, like the bad, I think about positives that are coming up.
Thank you, Libby, for sharing about focusing on the positive. I think everyone can definitely take positivity into their life at this moment, and in every moment of your life, it's just the most important aspect to have in your life, together obviously with Chassidus and Torah. And just to hit off with a bang, we will be having Esther Grona talk about the month of Elul and reflect about it. So this is the month that we're in right now. So it's a very, very important month, and over to Esther.
All right. Hi, everyone. There's a lot I want to say, so I'm just going to go straight into it. All right. So I feel like Elul is this time that's like a hidden gem, and a lot of people don't realize it. So like often we're caught up with Tishrei, we think about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, and like the forgiveness and judgment. But Elul is just mind-blowing, like what's going on spiritually. So yeah, we know the mashal that the king is in the field, but the true meaning of this is something so deep and spiritual that Elul is really this time in which we're so close to Hashem, and we can actually feel it when we understand what's going on. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is going on in this time. So the Rebbe explains in a mimer that Elul is a time where Hashem's Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, his 13 attributes of mercy, are revealed. These 13 attributes, Chassidus explains, is simply Hashem's endless godly light, the Or Ein Sof, his essence. So the Rebbe says that this revelation of Hashem's godliness gives us the ability to serve Hashem on our own rather than giving us an external inspirational boost. But okay, so what does this actually mean? Like, what is this ability and realizing our ability? So the Rebbe explains that this essence of Hashem that's being revealed is the very part of Hashem that's inside all of us. It's the shared essence that we both have. So Hashem is in the field and he's revealing his essence, Or Ein Sof, and the Rebbe says that this awakens the essence of our own soul because it's this shared deep part of both of us. So this is how it's a time of our own awakening and recognition of our own ability, and it's not a time of inspiration from like Hashem giving us this like flow of his light onto us, but it's the self-revelation. We see our own essence. So this is all quite like lofty and very cool stuff, but the Rebbe explains that he gives us the secret to actually accessing this intimate meeting of revelation with Hashem in the field. What we have to do is simply just have the desire to grow. We have to want to change. We have to want to be closer to Hashem. Hashem doesn't need these grand gestures of all this spiritual growth during Elul. All he wants is to just show that we're open and he'll reciprocate. The Rebbe also reassures us that we might not even be in the field. We might be in a desert, like way far out from the field, which represents someone whose actions are not fully aligned with Torah. We might not be so devoted to mitzvahs at this time. and our desire might be hidden. But even then, the revelation of Hashem and his essence still reveals our desire and then allows us to come join him in the field and be with the king. So no matter what level you're at, this time is still applicable to us during Elul. So in the mashal of the king in the field, the Alter Rebbe says he uses the words that the king receives everyone with a friendly face and shows everyone a smiling face. So with what we just learned, we can understand that this receiving everyone is Hashem receiving and acknowledging our desire to be close to him and to grow. And then by him showing a smiling face is Hashem reciprocating our simple gesture by revealing his essence, the Or Ein Sof. So then that revelation of his essence acts as a mirror for us to recognize our own essence, like we said before. But after that amazing meeting happens in the field, Hashem doesn't leave. He's standing there in the field the whole Elul. He stays there, and he doesn't just want to show us our ability and just leave back to the palace. He wants to witness our growth. So he stays there in the field until Rosh Hashanah comes, and then even when Rosh Hashanah comes, he still doesn't want to end this time of closeness. So he brings us back into the palace with him so we can remain close to him all the way until Shmini Atzeres. I hope that you were able to follow that flow of what the Rebbe was saying. I just loved learning this mimer. So quite simply, El is this time of relation to Hashem in the purest sense. It's not this the usual hierarchical relationship between us and Hashem. He comes to accompany us in our raw and unrefined field. It's the time where we're just purely relating to our source. So Elul is like Hashem's gift to us, where he meets each of us personally in our messy world outside of the palace and shows us that we have the godly light inside us. That it's like Hashem is saying, I see you and I see how much of a struggle spiritual growth can be. So let me show you the little piece of me that's always with you and the infinite possibilities that it gives all of us. And he wants us to see the power. He wants us to see the power we hold with our light, and also hold us in this time and have this time to reconnect our love and closeness after this whole year that we've had drifting apart. So yeah, I just love this idea. And it's so comforting that Hashem is he's with you whatever level you're at, and isn't looking for this huge spiritual growth, but he's just here to show us what we can do, like a little pep talk or a little reassuring kind of hug. And so I hope that we can all use the rest of this month to be with Hashem, literally talk to him. He's right next to us in our field, in our personal world. So I hope we can all soak it up. And hopefully when this time is over, we can connect to our essence, the piece of Hashem that's inside every single one of us.
Thank you, Esther. You summarized that mama so beautifully and made it so practically to our lives. Love it. So just to kind of end off the idea with the advent of the month of Elul, as Esther did say, we are in the month of Elul. That's when Chai Elul is, right? Chai means life. And the two people who began Chassidus, so the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, are born on this day, right? And they bring life to the world through Chassidus. And this is actually also represented in Ani L'Dadi V'Dadi Li, where Ani, my beloved, where we make the effort, is represented by the Baal Shem Tov, who initiated Chassidus in the first place and brought it down into this world. And then V'Dadi Li is the Alter Rebbe, where he actually spread it out and everyone was able to access it and everyone is able to learn it and really show, and that the true essence of Hashem is able to shine through. So would love to end off there. Thank you.
I want to jump in because I'm just listening to you and being so inspired. The whole night has been incredibly inspiring, but I love the fact that you and Mosi are amazing role models of living Chassidus, loving Chassidus, and learning Chassidus. So thank you for all the things you've shared with us, but for weaving together the most beautifully inspiring program. I'm walking out so inspired with incredible speakers up at the top. We have Professor Loewenthal and her illustrious husband, and they were both amazing. Loved every single word they said. Couldn't get enough of it. Mrs. Wonder, who's just amazing, living legend, literally lives what she believes and lives what she learns. And followed by every single one of you girls. Loved everything. There were so many different angles. It was really special and powerful, and Mosi and Tova get the credit for it all. I want to pop in and say just two quick things. No more Dvar Torahs, I know. One of them is that Last year, we actually had a really inspiring event. I don't know if you guys remember, it was online. It was a Sunday morning, and it was with Musia Cooper, I see her on the screen, her aunt, Esther Malka Groner, who spoke about her personal journey of coming to Hasidus. And it was really interesting. She grew up in Satmar. So I am going to share the recording link with the shluchot to post in all the great chats, because I know we're online and stuff. And if girls are going to find themselves watching anything over Chai Elul, I think it's a great choice to watch that. Another thing in addition is that this Matzah Shabbos program that I was mentioning with the Steinberg singing is going to have also a lot of beautiful, meaningful moments. We're going to be hearing from Mrs. Esther Hacht, who's a shlucha in New Zealand. She's starting off the event. We're going to be hearing from Rabbi Jaffe, who's Toba's dad, and we're definitely getting the family situation involved between Musi tonight and Toba on Matzah Shabbos. Great in-house talent. And of course, from the Steinberg sisters, and it's a special night that we start saying Slichas before Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to, of course, share that flyer with you guys tomorrow, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you there again. And Musi and Toba, we're very grateful for everything you do for our girls.
Thank you very much, Mary Lipscott. It is not all just us. Mary Lipscott is the person who actually makes everything happen. So thank you very much. And I think you pretty much covered thanking everybody. So I hope everyone had a very meaningful Chai Elul and continues to have a very meaningful and inspiring Chai Elul. And with that, have an amazing night.